I encourage you to please do some investigation. There are still some videos up on YouTube that will go into greater depth on some of the subjects I'm going to cover in this video, and I hope that you will please take the next steps to inform yourselves of the fact that our mainstream media has not exactly been truthful with us in the last handful of years. And I think perhaps the best place for me to begin this video about the significance of the cathedral fire in Paris is to take you to the Twitter page of the Boston Globe, where exactly 6 years ago today, which is the event we would call the Boston bombing, the Boston Globe had foreknowledge of the event, where their tweet on Twitter still remains to this day, where they tweeted out, "Breaking news, police will have controlled explosion on the 600 block on Boylston Street." People, the dates of April 15th to April 20th have had significant value to the enemy of the people of God and to humanity. For the last handful of years, let me remind you of a few of the events that have involved fire and explosion between April 15th and April 20th, just over the last handful of years. They include the fire at Waco, Texas, the Oklahoma City bombing, Columbine, Deepwater Horizon explosion, just to name a few, and every single one of those events are plagued with anomalies as significant as this particular tweet, which remains on the Twitter page of the Boston Globe, where with foreknowledge of the quote-unquote controlled explosion, which ended up being a terrorist attack, they literally tweeted out minutes before saying, "Police will have controlled explosion on the 600 block on Boylston Street." Now, if you're not familiar with my channel, you may not know that the reason I started a little YouTube channel, it was called The Truth, back in the day, was because I had done some investigation into what is called the Fort McMurray and the Canyon fires, where I had noticed that the devastation that had happened in these fires was just outrageous. Entire neighborhoods were flattened, just flattened. They were dustified, just like what we had seen in September 11th. The debris field of these fires was like nothing anybody had ever seen before. It was, cars were turned upside down. There was not a toilet. There was not a granite countertop. Nothing was left. And of the many things that reminded me of exactly what we saw in September 11th was this: white smoke. That is not what you see in a forest fire. That is not what you see in a structural fire. That is something that is not normal at all. So in the first video I did a whole bunch of slideshows, and I walked through and pointed out these anomalies of the Fort McMurray fire and the Canyon fire. And within just a year or two of me posting that video, all the crazy stuff that started happening in California fires, where the exact same debris field of nothing but dustified buildings remained, came true and started happening. So, since I have been covering these strange fires where you see this orange glow, which is like the orange glow here that we see in the background of September 11th fire. If you look here where this gal is standing in this thing, you see the strange orange glow. You know, that there was this weird orange glow that happened in September 11th. It marked the way that the building burned, and yet the building itself was just consumed in this white smoke, just like what I saw in the Fort McMurray fires and in the Canyon fires. And I've been pointing this out in my channel in the California fires and all that for a long time, because what you actually see in a house fire is black smoke. What you see in a structural fire, an open air fire where you're burning carbon, is you will see soot from the unburned material in the wildly inefficient combustion process of an open air fire. You don't have to be a physics major or a chemistry major to understand that an open air combustion fire is very inefficient, and soot is what makes this black. It's just the incomplete burnt pieces on a very small level that are being blown up into the air. That's what the smoke is. And yet we didn't see black in any of the structural fires of the Fort McMurray or the Canyon fire or the California fire. So when I got a phone call today asking me if I knew that Notre Dame was on fire, the first question I asked was, what color is the smoke and what color is the flames? Were the flames this electrified plasma color orange? Or were we going to see something that looked more like a house fire? This deeper orange that you see in a real fire that we can document. There's hundreds of these normal fires that have been recorded. Or were we going to see something that looked more like this electric flame here? Unfortunately, folks, it's the electric flame. What we see here in the Notre Dame pictures is something that looks more like arc welding. And the white flame, the white smoke, and almost a yellowish green smoke. There is something here, folks, going on that is not normal. This is not normal. This is not normal. I want to take you here to an image of this particular grid here that shows you every single line of this particular piece of structure. Every single inch of it is on fire. This looks more like the briquettes in a hibachi grill after the grill has been seasoned and burning for about 45 minutes. It takes time to get every single inch of the briquettes on fire. And yet, you guys, these are not chemically treated. In fact, let's take a look here at the spire. Every inch of the internal structural components of this building, on the outside, on the inside, in the spire, the entire thing, it's like it's been electrocuted. These are not flames. This is some sort of an arcing electromagnetic weirdness with a yellow, greenish, white smoke. And it's not just in one picture. It's in all of them, you guys. It's critical to recognize what they're showing us. People, this is not normal. There is something very weird happening here, and we have to recognize this and be willing to confront the uncertainty of this and just say, I know what they're telling us isn't true, and let me show you a couple of things that they're telling us that aren't true. They declared this building to be an entire loss within 100 minutes of the flames starting. This is within 100 minutes of this fire starting. They declared everything is burning, nothing will remain from the frame. And if you look at the frame of the building that I just showed you here, where you see every single inch of this, every single inch of every single structural support is quite literally on fire. Look at this. How did this happen? I've only seen this one time in the entire world, what I've ever looked at this, and this happens to be what we saw in the people driving out of the California fires, where these trees, I'm gonna hit play here, and I want you to look at this, where these trees are engulfed. I mean, they're like the briquettes that you see in a hibachi grill. This is not normal. This is not what happens to trees in a normal outdoor fire, guys. The trees catch on fire and the flame goes. The entire tree and all the structure of the building does not turn into this briquette-like flame. Now, I'm not going to say that I know what happens. So there'll be a lot of people out here that are going to be telling you that this is, directed energy weapons. They're going to say these are lasers. And there's a lot of evidence that we have had some weapons over the last decade or so that could do something like this. But my point is not to actually ask what is doing this, but to point you to the truth of who is behind this, because there's no doubt about that, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. First, let me take you to some other things that need to be pointed out about the news coverage here, and I want you to recognize that somehow the deputy mayor of Paris worked with the people at this cathedral to remove the artwork in time. And he's going to tell us that he had time to do that. But and yet at the exact same news conference, they admitted that within 100 minutes they knew everything was burning and nothing will remain from the frame of the fire, which means this fire spread with such rapidity. And let me put this into perspective, guys. I went to a mall in Chandler, Arizona over Christmas. I don't usually go to the mall, but just to give you an idea of how big, I've been to Notre Dame, I've been to Paris, I have stayed across the street from this in a beautiful hotel. It was a beautiful building. The size of this building is hard to imagine if you've never been there. It's like what I can only compare it to the spread of the Chandler Mall, where you have the Nordstroms at one end and the JCPenney on the other. It would be like a fire starting in the shoe department in Nordstrom, and within 100 minutes, them saying that JCPenney was a total disaster. It's a long, long, long distance for these fires to have spread if that were the case. And yet, obviously, guys, what we're seeing here is not a normal fire, because every single inch of the structural integrity of the building is what caught on fire, which it's not even catching on fire as I'm showing you. These have become briquettes of carbon for fodder of fire. So let me just point out one more time. He said that the building frame was demolished and there was nothing remaining of the frame within 100 minutes of the fire starting. And yet, I want you to listen to the deputy mayor of Paris talk about how they had time to get all the precious stuff that they could out of the cathedral.
But do you have any sense whether any of the artwork or artifacts inside have been saved?
Well, the Ministry of Culture and our services and the Louvre department have been cooperating to make sure that everything that can be saved and moved has been moved. We have been sending trucks from the City Department of Transportation, and you know, the collaboration between the state and between the City of Paris is very, very close and very tight tonight.
Sure.
So things are being under control.
So some things have been taken out of the church then? Some things have been rescued?
Yes. Some paintings, and yes, there have been elements, you know, being taken away, because when it started at the roof. So there was, you know, the reaction of the bishop team and I would say the administration, of course, to react.
Yes.
To protect, you know, the values they could take out, so they did.
Well, that's good to hear, because we didn't know whether anything at all had been saved from the church. So that is wonderful to hear that at least some things.
There are many things being saved and transported.
Okay, this should be chilling to you people. This was a fire that started on the roof. There is no way a normal fire starting on the roof could not have been put out. You guys, this building caught on fire in history, and they stopped it when all they were working with was buckets. There's no reason with today's modern technology that this fire beginning on the roof could not have been stopped. There's no way. This is absolutely absurd. It is important for you people to look at what is actually burning. One more time, I'm going to show you that what is actually burning here, guys, is the interior, the frame of the building. Every single inch of this building has been turned into briquettes. There's something, and I say briquettes like charcoal. Okay, there's something super wicked going on here, super wicked. The only thing that we can do to make sense of this, guys, and it doesn't matter if they used directed energy weapons or if it was some strange controlled demolition or whatever people want to say, you know, even if you want to say this was a cigarette butt, it doesn't matter how this fire started. What you have to know, folks, is that it would be impossible for the folks at the Louvre to go get a truck to pull all the stuff out of there within 100 minutes before the place was declared a disaster. There is obviously something else happening here. Now, if you don't want to recognize the obvious, then please turn this video off and go watch your mainstream media news.